Hey, how you doing? Anthony Ferraro here of Create Sci-Fi. Today we're going to talk about sound design. And remember, this is another video in our Aeranger how-to series. And I'm here today with Martin Carrillo. And I've worked with Martin on 2 or 3 projects now. And I just wanted to talk to him about sound design basics. Well, everything on my channel is DIY, but certain things, you know, you can't do yourself. So it's always helpful when you know what you're asking of the person. Martin, as I often come to him with very little budget, if I just said to him, oh, here's this project, I want it to sound good, I don't think he would have time for that. But if I've thought about it, I've done everything possible that I can do to prepare it for him, and then to hand him over something that we've talked about and I've thought about, then we have a better chance of having a DIY sound situation. So I'm going to turn it over to Martin. I'm going to ask him a few questions, and we're going to go over the basics.
So basically, you know, you have dialogue that's recorded. Either if it's animation, you're doing like you're recording the talent in the studio, and then you've got that to work with. You've got the action that they've recorded. That generally needs to be cleaned or edited, and you use a few tools to do that. Generally, a digital audio workstation, or DAW, we say in the audio technical world. A DAW is a piece of software that can use to cut the audio, and for the dialogue specifically, you're looking for clean takes. You're looking for multiple takes that show different emotion, that kind of thing. That dialogue editing process then sits above the sound backgrounds, which can set the tone for a scene. You're looking for sounds that don't interrupt the action too much, but that give you a bed, maybe winds or sounds that give you room tone if it's a particular room. That warehouse that you're in, that the characters are in, needs to have some kind of echo or some kind of element of interest. Or if you're outdoors in the forest, like in Aeranger, you're going to need some of those sounds of the birds or the wilderness around her.
So you basically want to have 3 separate tracks or 3 separate compartments. You want to have your dialogue, you want to have your sound effects, and you want to have your music. Now, is there any sort of, when you go to mix everything, is there any philosophies?
In general, you want to make sure things are smooth. You know, any cuts in between audio, sometimes you want to add a fade and just make sure those things are smooth going across. Levels, generally, you want your dialogue to sit above your music so that you're not, things aren't getting buried. That does take a lot of sometimes envelope work, and making sure that the times that the actors were quiet, that you turn up that a little bit to make sure that it sits in an audible range of hearing for the folks who are listening to your project. Paying attention to those details, maybe after you do all of the hard work of editing the picture and getting all of those things carefully laid in. If you're doing it DIY, those would be the things I'd pay the most attention to.
So now we're just going to spot Aeranger. We're going to do a quick spotting session for that, and I'll give you a fly-on-the-wall perspective of that. And here we go.
This is always a super exciting part of the project. You get to see what the visual artists have done up to that point, and that can be really inspiring. You want to approach the material with that level of excitement when you're spotting, because here's where all that possibility comes, and where your creativity can come in. And I'm going to pause right here. This may surprise some of your viewers that we take things in small chunks, like just to kind of evaluate things. It's true, and that's actually also the first thing that I do as a sound designer, or at this point in the process, is to also evaluate what the natural sounds were like, or what the location sound was like, whether it was captured well. This sounds like all of this stuff is really usable and really great, and might need just a little bit of EQ or some placement. The other thing that you might start to think if you're working in 5.1 is, how do we make this world really kind of envelop the audience? And so you start to think about like adding sound effects. Over here on this side, I've got this is SoundMiner, which is it's an advanced tool for managing a database, but you could easily like very quickly just sort of like search for forest, and it brings up a number of possible tracks.
If I can interject too, it's like, and it's the sort of thing where, because it's prehistoric Earth, it's like maybe we put more like, even though it's the forest, maybe it's more like a jungle, creature-y vibe than birds.
Sure.
That makes sense.
So that they're more like, well, yeah, or that it's more dense even, like that we've got more going on. So you could say jungle instead. And interesting enough, things you find other animals that that might be from a different region, or even things that
something a little more exotic or unfamiliar.
Right, exactly.
Like that sounded to me more prehistoric.
Like,
and then who knows,
amphibians.
Like, and this is just like my guess.
Sure. This is obviously the fun part where people's tastes come out, and you can actually like have a conversation about what those things evoke for you. Like for me, like,
because I don't think there would be birds.
Maybe,
and they're
maybe
probably
not.
And they're probably in the wild.
Right.
Sound that we recorded that day.
Yeah. Or what I guess just came to mind for me is that it's interesting that this sounds a little bit more like prehistoric, but to me the reason for that might be they're amphibians, and that's where evolution, that's kind of like speaks to evolution.
So it's giving
like
people these sonic cues.
Right. So you can start to jump back and forth between what you're seeing in the picture and what you might imagine is a part of the world. Three important markers that I'll want to put in here are this cut that happens from here, and I'll want to be working with the frame accurate grid, and I'm just going to say that this is a close on her, and these markers then appear in my timeline so that I can get immediately to those spots right away.
All right, so the one thing I wanted to chime in here now is just already in this short little session, establishing that we don't want it to sound like a traditional forest, to kind of evoke the prehistoric feeling and to kind of start to give clues to the audience about that. That's like, I'm excited, and as far as the spotting, we're going to continue spotting now, but I don't want to give you too much of Aeranger. I still want to save some of it for you. So we're going to continue the spotting session. All right. Well, hopefully that wasn't too much information. Like I said, like sound design, especially in sci-fi, really makes a difference in your final project of sort of what level you're putting it out and how it's perceived by the audience. It's one of those things where they'll subconsciously know if it's not right, and if it is right, they won't think of it. I mean, that's a cliche, but it's true. But anyway, again, thanks so much for joining us. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. I love the comments. And be sure to sign up for the email newsletter. And remember, well, we're both here to help make sci-fi.